All right, hello everybody. I'm really honored to introduce to you all this evening Reverend Yokoyama from
Sozenji.
Sozenji, thank you, Los Angeles, and originally from Japan. And he's on a tour of the Midwest. We're so grateful that he came through Iowa and came through to visit us at Zen Fields, offer a Dharma talk this evening, and we're just really ecstatic and looking forward to hearing his teachings tonight. So I'm going to pass it over to him, and I'll let you take it from here.
Okay, so maybe I'll just press here. Thank you, Daishin-san.
All right, you're welcome.
Yes.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Well, thank you for having me here. My name is Gyokei Yokoyama. My Dharma name, Gyokei, has made up two letters, which is usually how it is. Gyo means practice, and Kei means respect. So my grandfather, who named me, knew about me well enough to name me this way. And I have a way name, it's called Sento. Sen means hermit or bodhisattva, Buddha. And To, well, before I say To, the meaning of To, my grandfather had the way name Sengaku. So his second letter was a mountain peak. And yeah, he was a man of some solitude. And my father had Senjo, meaning castle. He lived up to his name. He completed the task of completing the temple complex, which burned down completely 100 years prior to his assuming his role. So when my turn came, the whole temple complex was complete. My brother also had a cool name. It's called Tenkei, meaning valley. So I was really looking forward to receiving my way name. And as it turned out, my grandfather gave me a peach. So I remember reacting to that. Wow, what all of this? You just gave me a peach. Peach has, however, interesting sort of a meaning that if you have read West to the Journey to the West, in China, it's one of the sacred fruits that gives life, longevity. So now I take it a little differently, resource of some sort, and I want to live up to that name. And this time I am here assuming this role as, sacredly or representing what we call Soto Zen Buddhism North America office. It's mouthful. But it's that office is located in Los Angeles, in the temple property of Zenshuji Soto Mission, the first Buddhist Zen temple built in 1922, where Daishin-san, Jusho-san, Heather, you came to celebrate the 100th anniversary just a while ago. We also have an office in Sao Paulo, Brazil, another office in Honolulu, Hawaii. That's also where the whole Japanese American communities are. And another one is in Paris, France, responding to the needs of all the European Sotos and Sanghas in France, Spain, Germany, and Switzerland. Recently, we had this kind of discussion of whether to place another Soto-Zen office in one of the cities in Australia. There was one registered Soto-Zen temple in Australia. So that might happen in the future. So our job is mostly to register and make sure that all the priests process all the rituals and ceremonies and training records so that they will all be fully registered. There's another organization or group entity called Soto Zen Buddhism International Center. So that is another group which originally was part of our office, but their main job is to reach out to as many sanghas as I suppose they can, all across the world. So those who take this job have to have a transcontinental trip constantly, and it's quite a task. So I sometimes describe our office work as a defense or goalies. Make sure that this is there. And then international centers like strikers, they go around and score the goals. My boss or the director of Soto Zen Buddhism North America office is Reverend Gengo Akiba, who is also the teacher of Reverend Jisho Seabird. And as some of you might know, there have been several SOCAM, what we call general directors of each office. Reverend Daishin McCabe's teacher, Diane Benaj, who also completed, she's probably the only person who completed the training for Shike, associate Shike, right? Yeah. Was also a great candidate. And so I feel really honored to be able to see how this particular lineage that Sotoshu really honors, values, are reaching out to this part of the country in Iowa. And I heard, Heather, you're receiving this whole lineage, so thank you very much. Akiba Roshi, since my father had passed away for quite some time, Akiba Roshi sometimes treat me like a little troublesome son. He sometimes says, I get worried about you. And more than a few times I got reprimanded, and for good reason, but he's such a figure. And so it's also nice to see his lineage continuing this way. As you might know, we have Suzuki Roshi of San Francisco, Maizumi Roshi, White Plum, Katagiri Roshi in the Midwest. We all know Shohaku Kumura Roshi's lineage is spreading across the world. And now we have Akiba Roshi's lineage continuing this way. Of course, Dain-san's lineage. So there are many lineages. And that's how, in Japan, Soto Zen developed. And this whole institution to sort of make sure to stay connected, all this lineage is connected, came much later. So we had centuries of each lineage growing. And much, much later in modern history, we started to have this old lineage sort of come together. When I travel around, every Sangha member, sub-teacher said, give me this little apologetic smile. It says, we do things a little slightly differently here. And I say, yes, we all do things differently, slightly. And so are we in Japan. So now, as an extension of these trips in North America, I'm starting to make a trip across Japan. And surprising how each lineage carries Sangha carries a unique tradition. Also deities they enshrine. I've never heard of names before. Maybe I'm not just that knowledgeable, but it's quite amazing experience. So with that understanding that I travel and meet different Sanghas. In Midwest, I had a chance to visit Minneapolis. There are 3 Sanghas: Clouds in Water Zen Center, Compassionate Ocean Zen Center, and Minnesota Zen Meditation Center. And I didn't get to visit this place this time, but they all introduced me or mentioned me at Dharma Field. And I heard a couple of them there are also interested in connecting with Sotoshu. So that's a wonderful thing. On my way here, I visited Hokyoji Temple and then Jimonji Temple. So Yes.
Can I ask a question? You mentioned some of the folks at Dharma Fields was interested in connecting with Sotoshu. So maybe you can clarify for everybody.
Oh, okay.
What do you mean? Because aren't we all connected to Sotoshu? What is Sotoshu, And
Right, right.
what are the,
Thank you.
differences
Yes.
in
So in
America?
case, thank you for that. Yeah, encouraging me to clarify. So as you might know, Daishin-san, Jisho-san have trained in Japan, myself as well, growing in Japan. And um, this same thing happened in Europe and the US. And then as we celebrated recently, we had a centennial celebration, which goes all the way back to the beginning of Japanese American Buddhist community. We also were celebrating this histories, at least 7 decades, 8 decades of Western Zen. And this centennial celebration is also for us to mark that celebration of this Western Zen, which has taken deep roots. And so in Soto Shu or Soto Zen school in Japan is a group of people who have trained in a certain registered monastery, and which usually means we have somebody we call shike, someone fully trained to training monks. And this is something that's often forgotten about in the West, that you can have a great building, great sangha, but there's a certain way to cultivate this understanding. So being a Japanese Soto Zen monk, I have now 7 monastic students. One of them completed the whole process, become Kokusai Kyoshi. 3 others on their way to become Kyoshi, and there are temples that I was sent to. So the way I am training them is each of them train in their way and assume the roles of their minister or teachers there. When they came asking me if they could complete the process. I tell them, yes, I only know the Japanese Soto Zen training method, but if you choose to be an American Soto Zen that's not recognized in Japan, that's okay with me too. And usually the training, the most difficult part for those people who have full aspiration, yet difficult to complete, is there are 2 things. One is a Dharma combat that requires a group of monks to come together. Another one is what we call Ango training, where you go to a Japanese training monastery. Akiba Roshi had spent many years trying to establish what we call Tempyo-za Monastery in Northern California. This sort of efforts are also made in France, Kanshoji Temple, Fudenji in Italy, and name slipped my mind, but there's one temple in Brazil. And yet, they still need this licensed teacher called Shige. That is a license Dayan-san had. So to have somebody like that, it's a lot. Anyway.
I'll just clarify you off that license. I don't know very much about it, but yeah. My teacher shared a little bit that she trained for 4 years, special training with other teachers. It was pretty intense. And that was beside the training that she did at the women's monastery in Nagoya. So she lived for 8 years at a women's monastery in Japan. And then she was selected for this, it's called Shike training. It's to become a teacher of teachers, basically.
Yes.
And there's very few teachers that are actually qualified or that have been through that Shike training of 4 intensive years. And so it's it was a big deal. And I remember her talking about that. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Anyway, so how shall we put this? This is, I think, relevant to what I wanted to share with you tonight. So here's something that I've been sharing with other sanghas, and I hope I can kind of connect this what we're talking about, the American Zen movement and the roots that we have in Japan. I was hearing the sound of cicada. I love it. In California, we don't get to hear it that often. In the summertime, we hear this often. It's a humid air, and we have this thing called obon. Obon comes from the word urambana. Some say it comes from a Buddhist term of hanging upside down. One of the stories that goes back to the mother who was fallen into the hell realm, and that happened to be the mother of the Buddha. I don't really get to the detail of this Buddhist fable or legend, but some other historian says this may actually precede Buddhism itself. This tradition of ancestral worshipping may actually go all the way back to Middle East in ancient civilization, civilization. And when we have an Obon, you have an altar here in the center because that's Zendo. And in the main temples, you may see the altar. And we consider that Mount Sumeru or the north. We are facing the north. And that's when we bow, spreading zagu, full bows and prostrations. In some regions, including my community, we create another altar facing south, the other direction. Sometimes we place the altar outside of the hall, and that is to direct or extend our merit to sentient beings, animals, creatures, hungry ghosts. And in my town, you see, each temple has a unique tradition. My temple, we prepare this basin water. We splash the water to quench the thirst. And then there's eggplants and rice, of course. Everything has come with the rice. And there are sometimes type of vegetables. And then some of them we no longer eat so much because we have a great distribution system and we import food from different countries. But on those occasions, we have the type of foods. When I was a child, I didn't recognize some of the ingredients, but there they are. And my father would say, yeah, these are the ingredients our ancestors ate. So you can maybe compare it to something maybe we don't eat today, but people, the settlers ate, or indigenous people had as the main diets. So that's the type of offerings that we make. Sometimes I go down to the river, climb down the river cliff, and then offer the service in the same manner, extending this merit to the creatures in the water, but also there's all these nameless children who drowned. Be surprised how many children died in the early days. Fairly recently, up until 1800s, we would have a list of children's names and how easy it was for young children to lose their lives. Of course, birth rate was equivalently high, so the population kept growing. So that's the South. And then I've been kind of sharing this. So in a most formal way of offering the service, whether it's a memorial service or whether it's this Obon, we dedicate our whole practice to the Buddhas and ancestors in a language that we no longer speak. Unfamiliar sound, which you might not register with your intellectual capacity. And I was just sharing with other Sangha, if we extend our imagination, let's say 500 years from now, maybe people might not be speaking the same English language that we are speaking today. But you may find that these people might be offering something that we're drinking today. Some jokingly saying maybe they're offering coffee to us, although they might not be drinking the same coffee that we drink today. 1,000 years later, if human beings are around still, they might be dedicating their service with what might sound like the modern day English of today. That's what we are doing by chanting the sutras with the ancient language. So throughout the history, there's this kind of relativity. They had their own social norm. They had their own language. They had their way of living. But what captures our attention with the practice most is this teachings of the Shakyamuni Buddha from 2,500 years ago, Dogen's teachings from over 700 years ago, that still sinks in the same way, this timeless nature of the practice. And And this timeless nature is what we sometimes discuss as, this is what connects us with the roots. And this is what Sotoshu school really emphasizes in a sense. It might not make sense to us because we live with this particular social value, with this particular, let's say, worldview and perception. But staying connected with the roots, the tradition, also opens up this perception, that the understanding that what we perceive as of today, is not really, it is as valid, yet there's a way to stay connected, and that transcends this relative understanding, relativity. On the other hand, as we face south, which is to the sentient beings, when we have the service to the self, we don't have these prostrations. We put aside a zagu because we are teachers, or we are, giving out. So when I share this practice with my students, you will always be teachers. You will always be students. It's not like either one or two. And this is something that I think as a school, we maintain as something important. Because people tend to like to be either one. I've seen both. I don't know enough. I can't share anything. I can't teach. The other ones, I've been leading this group so many years. But in a Japanese school, I'd love to hear the word serve. Serve. I've been serving this community. And I can say there's a little difference in the culture. Yes, so that's the other thing I thought I would share was when I was growing up in the temple, my temple was originally a Shingon temple, esoteric Buddhist temple that goes way back to 700s. And that's when the early forms of Buddhism just spread around. And the way the temple grew, we had the thing called Sangaku Shinko. Sangaku means a mountainous region. So they worship mountains. So it was kind of intertwined with the worship to the nature. And we have a particular cliff called Kagami-iwa, mirror rock, which people worshipped in the ancient time. So that's how it came, and then all this tradition kind of deteriorated. So then when the Soto Zen started to spread in 1500s, what they discovered around the time was a little something that looked like a temple, but back then we hear it was just a little shrine, something that remains like relics almost. And there came this monk who just connected with the villagers at the time, and villagers really support this monk. And then there came back this temple, Soto Zen. Yet we have the medicine Buddha as a central Buddha. And this is often how Soto Zen spread. Sometimes it's the Amitabha Buddha. Sometimes it's a Vairochana Buddha. Sometimes it's the Avalokiteshvara, Kuan Yin. And sometimes Samantabhadra. Basic principle of Soto Zen school is, I feel like it's a little similar to Roman Empire. We respect the indigenous religion. We'll never kick out what's there. And this is also the mentality that we carry. We're sent to another school. The first temple that I served in California was a non-denominational Buddhist community, which had zero interest in Soto Zen Buddhism. And I wondered, why do they send me here? And so their whole worship was Shakyamuni Buddha, his words alone, Dhammapada, nothing else. And then I told them, wow, this sounds a little like Protestant culture that I've learned. So I started to introduce different Buddhas and things. So, I was sharing in this word religion class today that yes, we have this Hinduistic view. There are many forms of manifestations, and it gives us a sort of a basic, interesting foundational understanding. It's okay to be different. Not everybody has to be like Shakyamuni Buddha. Not everybody has to be like Kuan Yin, because some of us have different qualities. And I was happy when I learned about Samantabhadra, Bodhisattva of actions, because I had a little bit of inferiority complex. I'm not that kind. I'm not that intelligent. Wise. Well, actions. Well, that's my Dharma name. Okay, I can stick to that. Yeah. Anyway, so that's a little silly way of taking it, but still, there are different characters, and this kind of value is reflected in the pop culture sometimes in animes. And then there's just one character I've been sharing with others Zen's community is there's this children's show, you might know this, Daishin-san, called Anpanman. Anpan means a bread with sweet bean paste in it. So the closest thing I can think of is a Boston Donuts. Yeah, so it was a cream in it, except it's a bean paste cream. And this Anpanman was these stories or these characters. Some say it's kind of based off of this bodhisattva figures, and the songs they use is related to the what they say kamikaze. So it's a children's show. But sometimes these stories carry a deep meaning. They don't show it that way. There's such subtlety in it. And in this show, each episode is very short because it's really for toddlers. Anpanman can somehow fly. So he flies around and he always manages to find someone who's in trouble, who's hungry. So he flies down there casually, and what he does typically is just takes out a portion of his head and says, "Here you go," and give it out. And then there's this kind of a villain. He comes out with this like cool gadget, and Anpanman almost always loses. He gets defeated, and then we all know that because he gives a portion of his head, his resource, and then of course it's a children's show, so in the end, friends come over and help him out, and there's a thing called patch. That's like how he finishes finishing move, and he gets a new head in the end. So that's nice. But the creator of this animation says they never meant to make this a show where they teach children the value of self-sacrifice. It's nothing like that. It's just very casual tone, peaceful, and just the way Anpanman gives a portion of his head happens as if there's nothing, there's no transaction, there's no hesitation. And I often see this as a great embodiment of bodhisattva practice, because we come out to the Sangha, we volunteer, we spend a number of hours, we commit a portion of life, it's not the whole life. And then I have to tell all those missionaries too, the priests, there are moments like, what are we doing here? Is it what we signed up for? Is it worth it? There's the slightest hesitation. And that's something about deep in the Zen practice, because no matter how beautiful that action would be, how beneficial that action would be, if there's that gap, and that bodhisattva action would not be that bodhisattva action. It would still be the action in the duality, in the realm of duality. It's so easy for us to fall, and then it's something I reflect all the time too. Am I getting something? Is it worth it? There's always this kind of mind. All of us. This sort of Anpanman character is a great sort of example, a manifestation of how we should practice. There's nothing lost. There's nothing given. And he does not think of when he's taking out as a big portion of head that about what may happen or may not happen. So that's just a very casual, straightforward, simple way of conveying the young children, small children, that how, it can happen. This kind of practice can happen. And that's also the central value of Soto Zen school too. We go out there, we give the whole self, and then that's it. That's it. So, yeah. And, yeah. I struggled in Japan, hoping to find the right teacher, as Dogen said, looking for who would be the right teacher. And I just wasn't ready. My mind wasn't ready. I think I was kind of closing it myself. And yet, that's when I encountered Suzuki Roshi's Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind. That's when I learned that Barney Glassman posted this article in Japan Times. It's an English newspaper in Japan. It took me to Massachusetts to meet him in 2006.
Oh, wow.
That's how I began to encounter Western Zen.
Oh, wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah. And here I am in the West, but back then my father, a teacher who was very active, said no Soto Zen mission outside of this particular temple. If you're leaving this community, you have to disrobe. I'd rather see you active as non-priest than see you active as a priest.
Wow.
And he thought, well, as long as I'm alive, it's not going to happen. So I completely surrendered. As father, son, lots of disagreement. But as a teacher and student, there's always this strict thing. So, and the only reason I'm here, it's been 10 years, is because he passed away soon after that. And the stepmother, my mother had been gone for a long time, who was there. And there was this particular person who really wanted to be the abbot of this particular temple that I was serving. It came in miraculously.
Really?
So yes, and they asked me 2 questions. Would you be interested in international mission? Which of course I said yes. And then more importantly, we had a conversation. Okay, we thought your father, your teacher, would live a long life. He was 62 at the time. Now, how would you like to live the rest of your life? If you stay in the temple, you have your position, I think everything would be kind of stable. My stepmother was there, and I was completely unhappy. Everything, I was wearing this fancy robe. Everything was there. There was even a family who came, well, I have a daughter for you. I said, no, thank you. So that's a community. And so, yes. And then there was this thing that I made, I'd like to give my whole life to that mission. And this is where I can really spiritually feel alive. And it's been 10 years.
Wow.
Yes. So I became a US citizen in 2021. And
congratulations.
Thank you. Yes, thank you. Dajin-san, I think you're one of the first persons who said congratulations. And I have my son in Canada. So of course, US citizenship allowed me to access Canada more easily. But North America became the place, and I'm totally ready to be buried on this continent.
Wow.
As one generous friend, which is actually Kenzan in Shaoshan Temple, said, Gyokei, if you don't make it to Canada, we have a nice plot for you. So I looked at it and said, this looks great.
We'll be there with you.
Yeah,
seriously.
Yeah. Well, because it's, the plot is getting quite expensive in LA. So I thought it was probably a realistic solution. So anyway, I'll stop it here. But that's the thing. Once again, I'd like to really, it was really, really nice to see Daishin-san, Jisho-san, and all of you. I have been secretary of the office for the last 10 years. Each year, we ask all the missionaries to send a report. It used to be like 10-page long reports. Every single word had to be translated. So like several years ago, we asked each teachers, can you make it like just 1-page long report? So it's been a tremendous help, but I've been reading about their activities. Here, your world religion class, trauma-sensitive care, Gyokei-san's activities in Uganda, and activities here in the Quakers, gathering place. So it's really wonderful to finally see the place and with you. So thank you for having me. Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much. Let's do a closing. And I
Yeah.
apologize for not doing the opening verse for the Dharma talk.
Okay.
We'll make sure we do that next time. May this merit extend universally to all, so that we, together with all beings, realize the Buddha way. All Buddhas throughout space and time, all honored ones, Bodhisattva, Mahasattvas, wisdom beyond wisdom, Mahaprajna, Paramita. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. ありがとうございました。And Heather-san, as you go through this path, I'd be happy to share any resources, information on behalf of the office. Yes, please consider me as a Zen social worker.
Thank you.
Yes. I wonder if I can take a pic. Oh, and thank you, Judy and Seikai-san.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Can we take a set?
Yeah, let's take a photo.
Sure.
Let's take a photo together. Yeah, and I when we do precept ceremonies and I'm figuring out Dharma names for folks, I pass them by Gyokei-san, so please help
All
me
the
out
names, yes.
with your name. So,
Well, then I have to ask, Jusho-san, how it sounds okay in Spanish? It's been my fault recently. It sounds okay in English and Japanese, but we should triple check if it sounds okay in Spanish language too. Never checked that. So would you like to?
how do you want to do it?
You know what?
In front of the Buddha here?
Oh, maybe. Now just
You
use
don't
the
want it to
timer.
be in the picture. I
Oh, okay.
I think I can do the timer here.
Yeah.
It's easy. Thank you.
Should we turn on the light so it's a little
Yeah.
brighter?
Yes.
Maybe.
And maybe just get
front
around,
of you.
get around the Buddha here. Get close so it doesn't have to. If you need a cushion, maybe put it on top of a cushion.
Oh, how about like this? Oh, this.
Shall I move this out of the way?
Okay.
Oh, we're taking a picture of them too, right? Or should we move that? I didn't know.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't know.
Right, that's great. Yes,
We
I
could.
do that too.
All right. Bye bye.